Good morning. How are you? I hope everything's going great. Today we are starting race strategy. Does that sound familiar to you? It's all about writing complete sentences. So you're going to need this for the rest of your life, believe it or not. You are, I swear. You're even going to need it in 6th grade, especially in my class. So let's get started, okay? So what does race mean? What do you think? So the R usually means restate, like restate the question that's being asked. A in race means to answer the question that's being asked. And then the C and the E kind of go together. C means cite evidence. That means tell the person that's reading the evidence that's in the article. And E means explain. Explain why you chose that evidence. So we're going to break it down a little bit here. So this is the most important part. If you don't do anything else, you have to restate the question. Now, the reason why it's so important is because if you just write yes, well, what's the question? I don't know what you're talking about, right? But if you retell the question to the people that are reading your response, they'll know exactly what you're talking about. So let's just read this over together and then we'll kind of break it down, unpack it a little bit. So restating the question. If there are more than one question in the prompt, you need to restate each one. So why is it important? The question or questions in the prompt should be obvious in your answer. In other words, the reader should know what the question is by reading your answer without ever even reading the question. The good news, it's super easy to do, and I'm going to show you the little trick. But in most cases, you can simply take the question and turn it into a statement. So here's our example prompt. Explain what the author, Maya Angelou, might have meant when she wrote, "The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown by longed for still. Cite evidence from the poem to support your answer." And then here's the example of the restating of the question. When the author, Maya Angelou, wrote, "The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still," she likely meant ... You fill in the rest, right? So let's break it down. Here's what we do. Let's do it together. Explain what the author Maya Angelou might have meant when she wrote, "The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still. Cite evidence from the poem to support your answer." Now there's some question words in there, like explain and cite evidence. Well, we don't need to say that in our restated question. So how can we do this? Let's take a peek here. First of all, get rid of that first question. Explain what the author, just get rid of it. Cross it off. Start the sentence with, Maya Angelou might have meant when she wrote, "The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still." Oh, there's that other question. Cross it out. Then you're left with your restated question. Now, if you want to jazz it up with some more words, totally cool. So here's what I came up with. When the author, Maya Angelou, wrote, "The caged bird sings with a feral trill of things unknown but long for still," she likely meant ... So you're saying the question again without the question words. Let's move on to the next part. So we're going to use the same prompt, but now we're going to answer the question. So answer the question in the prompt. If there are multiple questions, answer each one. Often your answer will be part of the same sentence in which you are restating. This is demonstrated below. Let's check it out. Why is it important? It is important to give a thorough answer to show the reader your analysis of the text. You're showing the reader, hey, this author, they know their stuff. They read. They understand. Let's do the example prompt. Explain what the author Maya Angelou might have meant when she wrote, "The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but long for still. Cite evidence from the poem to support your answer." Hey, that sounds familiar. I think we just did that question, right? We did. We're building. All right, here's the example. So we came up with, to restate the question, When the writer Maya Angelou wrote "The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown, but longed for still," she likely meant, and now we're answering the question, the caged bird sings for its freedom, even though it has never actually experienced freedom. Now, you probably haven't ever read this poem, and that's okay. Guess what? We're going to do it in 6th grade. But I'm just giving you this example. If you had read this poem, you would know that Maya Angelou most likely meant that the caged bird sings for freedom. It's locked up in a cage. It wants to get out, even though it's never actually experienced freedom. It doesn't know what it's like, but it wants to experience it. So to answer the question, we're just saying the caged bird sings for its freedom, even though it has never actually experienced freedom. All right, citing evidence. This is where you're going to have to refer back to your reading most of the time. Sometimes you can pull out other sources like the internet, books, magazines, posters in the classroom, books you have around your house, but most likely it's going to be in the reading prompts that you're going to be assigned. So let's take a look. Most prompts will ask you to cite evidence to support your answer. If so, find the evidence that proves your claim and shows the reader that you can back up your answer. You can cite evidence in 2 ways. One, you can do a direct quote. So directly quote the evidence word for word from the passage. That is what a quote is. You might be familiar with quotes from some of the warm-up questions we've had. You must enclose the quote in quotation marks. Those are those 2 little like squiggly commas on either side, but there's 2 like commas up in the air together. You must enclose the quote in quotation marks to acknowledge that it is someone else's words, and if applicable, give the name of the person you are quoting. It's important to do that because you want to give voice to the person that you want to give voice and credit to the person that actually said that information and not take credit for it. Number 2, paraphrase. What is that? You just write the evidence in your own words and acknowledge the source. So you could acknowledge the quote without quoting it, without restating the quote, and summarize, another word for paraphrase, the evidence from the quote. Now, this is important. The evidence you provide in your response should be no more than 20 to 30% of your answer. You should not have 2 paragraphs of evidence copied and pasted from the paragraph. That's not useful to our reader. We want to paraphrase. In other words, most of your answers should just be in your own words. So let's take a look. Now, it's important because without supporting evidence, the reader has no proof of your claim and therefore no reason to believe you. Also, evidence helps the reader understand and claim. So when you read something like a news article, most likely the author that published that article provides some evidence, and that's to prove their claim. Anybody can say anything, but you got to have proof. You got to have the receipts to prove what you're saying. So let's take a look at our example prompt again. It's the same one that we've been using. Explain what the author Maya Angelou might have meant when she wrote, "The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown, but longed for still." Cite evidence from the poem to support your answer. Here is our slowly growing paragraph. Example, cite evidence. When the writer Maya Angelou wrote "The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown, but longed for still," that's our restated question, she likely meant, this is me answering the question, the caged bird sings for its freedom, even though it has never actually experienced freedom. Now, this is where we're citing the evidence from the reading. Obviously, this becomes clear when the author writes, "But the caged bird stands on the grave of dreams." So, do you see the quotation marks, those little like comma apostrophes up in the air, the 2 on either end? That's a direct quote from this poem by Maya Angelou. So that was the evidence I drew from the paragraph to justify my claim. Let's keep going here. All right, we're on to the last one. Now we're going to explain the evidence in our claim. You should not drop evidence on the reader without explaining what it is to help expand the reader's knowledge. It's easy to mistakenly think that the reader knows what you are trying to say, but often the reader needs a lot of help to fully understand how your evidence relates or proves your claims. When you write, you should write as if your listeners have no idea what you're talking about. Lots of details, lots of quotes, lots of citation of evidence. Let's check it out. So why is it important to explain? It's important to make sure your reader understands what your evidence means and specifically how it supports your claim. This is also an opportunity to sway the reader to see things the way you see them. We see this a lot on TV commercials, especially in this political climate we're in right now. It's a great way to, when you're providing the evidence, to sway your reader to think the way you are thinking. So let's look at our example prompt once again. Explain what the author Maya Angelou might have meant when she wrote, "The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still." Cite evidence from this poem to support your answer. Let's check out a building paragraph. Restating the question. When the writer Maya Angelou wrote, "The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still," answering the question, she likely meant the caged bird sings for its freedom, even though it has never actually experienced freedom. Citing evidence. Obviously, this becomes clear when the author writes, "But the caged bird stands on the grave of the dreams." Explain. In other words, the grave represents death and dreams unlived, so the caged bird can only sing about them but never live them. Let's take another peek here. Now let's put it all together. Now take a look at this page. This is exactly what you're going to do for the next 3 days in all of your race strategy assignments in language arts. See how I've highlighted using this? I hope you can see my mouse, I'm not sure. Using this color-coded key here. So restating the question will be green. I chose a lighter color so it would stand out better. Try to avoid the dark colors or I won't be able to read them. Answer your question, highlight it in yellow. Citing evidence, highlighted in pink. And then explain or give examples, highlighted in orange. So I've taken what we've written. This is restated the question, all in green. This is where we answered the question, all in yellow. The cited evidence is in pink. I just highlighted the quote. That's okay. If you want to highlight all the words you use to kind of jazz it up, make it more interesting, you totally can. And then explain or give examples. Highlight everything you used to give examples or explain the information in orange. See how it's broken down and it's always in order. Restate, answer, cite, explain, and give examples. What do you think? Should we unpack it a little bit more? Let's try it. Oh, look at that Mrs. Burton. She's going on a trip. All right, so let's read the passage. Cell phones in school. The most important thing to remember are your answers need to make sense. Not all answers will fit the formula, the race formula. You may need to rearrange your responses. So read your answers aloud when finished. Assume your readers know nothing about the topic. You are their sole provider of information. They have nothing else. So I'll read this to you. Cell phones in school. Smartphones are everywhere, but the debate about whether students in school should be able to use them rages on. Some say that cell phones can be used for positive reasons like research and student safety. Students can use their phones for many productive purposes, using a calculator, looking up the definition of words, organizing their assignments in a calendar, and using apps to study. They also argue that allowing students to use cell phones in school prepares students for adult life, in which they will use technology daily. Teachers, however, argue that phones are too distracting. They say that kids are often too tempted to play games, text each other, and take pictures during instructional time. They can also cheat on assignments by looking up the answers online. Teachers do not trust that students will use their phones responsibly or appropriately if they have them. They believe the phones are too much of a distraction and take away from a student's overall education. Okay, I don't expect you to remember everything. That's why I'm giving you this prompt, so we can refer back to it. So let's unpack it. Should students be allowed to use cell phones in schools? What are the benefits and drawbacks, that means bad things, of allowing cell phones in schools? Use evidence from the passage to support your response. So how many questions are being asked in this prompt? Well, let's see. Let me turn my pointer on. So, should students be allowed to use cell phones in schools? Well, that's a question. There's a question mark, so that's a dead giveaway. What are the benefits and drawbacks of allowing cell phones in school? Oop, there's another question mark. There's two. What about this? Use evidence from the passage to support your response. Is that a question or is that telling us to do something? It's telling us to do something. So it's going to be two. So right here, we're going to write 2. Well, let me draw. Maybe not. This will be 2. Pretend it says 2. Maybe I'll get out of... There we go. Then we can type it. We'll do it this way. There's nothing fancy beyond here. All right, 2 questions. Unpack the question by typing them separately below. Okay, so we found those question marks, so I'm going to type those 2 questions. The first one, should students be allowed to use cell phones in schools? Question mark. Okay, and then we had the second one. What are the benefits and drawbacks of allowing cell phones in schools? This is the first time we're experiencing 2 questions, so let's keep on unpacking together. There we go. This is the same question. I just put it there again so we could keep referring back. Now turn each question into a statement. Should students be allowed to use cell phones in schools? How can we change that into a statement? Remember the trick? Get rid of these question words. Should is a question word. So if we say, if we believe students should be using cell phones in school or should be allowed to, we would write students should be allowed to use cell phones in schools. Now, what if we wanted to argue the other side and say students should not be allowed to use cell phones? Well, you would just say students should not be allowed to use cell phones in schools. Make sense? But for the sake of this paper, I'm going to say students should be allowed to use cell phones in school. Let's check it out. The next question, what are the benefits and drawbacks of allowing cell phones in schools? How do we change that into a statement? Get rid of those question marks or question words. What and are, get rid of those. So we would say the benefits, we're only going to address benefits because we want to tell the good stuff, right? Of allowing cell phones in schools are bop, bop, bop. Now, if we wanted to talk about why we don't think, if we would have said students should not be allowed to use cell phones in school, we did then want to talk about the bad things, the drawbacks of having phones in schools. We would say the drawbacks it's fighting me. It doesn't want to type anymore. This would say drawbacks. Well, we won't fight Google today. Okay, let's see. Is it going to switch slides for us? Just got to be patient. Technology doesn't like us. Oh, it's reconnecting. I can see it. There we go. All right, we're going to answer and cite. What is the correct answer to the first question? You can type this in note-taking style, jot down keywords, complete sentences, will just come together. So, in my opinion, I think, let's see. Let's go back here. Smartphones are everywhere, but the debate about whether students in school should be able to use them rages on. Students can use their phones. See how I'm just kind of like skimming things, checking out each sentence. Oh, here we go. Here's some positive stuff. Students can use their phones for many productive purposes. Using a calculator, then we could list some of those. I think that's a good idea. So I'm going to go back. Students can use their cell phones for productive reasons, such as calculator, dictionary. Don't mind my spelling. Remember, we're just taking notes. Doesn't have to be perfect. What were some of the other things? I'm going to keep referring back to the article. Definitions, yes, the calendar. And calendar. Evidence, if any, supports this answer. Use quotation marks if directly quoting the exact words from the passage. Okay, let's see if we can find a quote or some information in the passage again. Calendar, students to use cell phones. Here we go. Allowing students to use cell phones in school prepares students for adult life. Allowing students to use cell phones in school prepares them for adult life. Okay, see how I just took some notes. Doesn't that be great? Go to the next one. What is the correct answer to the second question? What do you think? What are the benefits and drawbacks of allowing cell phones in school? What's the correct answer to the second question? What are some other benefits? Well, let's take a look. Maybe let's do drawbacks, because we haven't done drawbacks yet. So let's talk about drawbacks. Go back up here to the question. Okay, teachers, however, argue that phones are too distracting. I think we should use that. Okay, here we go. Teachers think phones are too distracting. Here it is. Okay, now what evidence did they give in the prompt? They say that kids are often too tempted to play games, text, and take pictures. So I'm going to quote it because I know that I need to go back and check the quote. Texting, or the other ones, taking pictures, ... Remember to go back and look. Ongoing. All right, how can you elaborate? We're on the E on your answer. Explain your evidence further or tell what it means. How can we elaborate? So let's look at the prompt again. What other stuff could we use? We could say that technology is used daily and it's important for students to have technology skills. Say that, in which they use technology daily. Say important for students. Don't mind my dogs, they're starting to bark at each other. Important for students to use technology daily. Put your evidence in terms that are easy to understand or explain why it's important. Now with this one, I don't need to do this. It says try one of these. Try one of these. So I'm only going to do one, the most important for me. All right, so let's try. Compose your response by putting all the elements you've written into paragraph form. Use complete sentences and add transitions before giving evidence. So a transition word means like saying from the article or obviously, those kind of words. Remember the jazzed up words that we were talking about? And then we're going to highlight using the special color coded key I've got there for us. So let's take a look. The questions. We're restating the question, remember? I go back up to restate where we typed them out. Students should be allowed to use cell phones in school. There we go. Students should be allowed to use cell phones in schools. The benefits are, we're answering the question, right? Let's see, the benefits are, I forgot what we said, you guys, short-term memory loss. Answer, students can use their cell phones for productive reasons. There we go. And we got to put them in quotes. Our students can use their phones for productive reasons, such as calendar, calculator, dictionary, period, quotations. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Oscar. That was Oscar. All right, so we've done restate. We've answered it because we said, yes, they should be. And then we cited some evidence, right? This is a quote from the actual article. And then now we're going to explain, why do we think they should be? We have to explain this information. Do you remember we said that? Where is it? Allowing students to use cell phones in school prepares them for adult life. Yes, that sounds like good stuff to use. Allowing students to use cell phones in school prepares them for adult life. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to do the highlighting. Our restated question. Right here. It's green. See, I'm choosing a lighter green color instead of that neon stuff. Now, our answer to the question, right here, starts here. The benefits are, here's some cited evidence, right? Here's our quotation marks. So that's going to be pink. We're citing. I think, let's go with this one. That looks pretty. And then explain is going to be this part, the last part, all in orange. Oh my gosh, you guys, we just did it. We just did it. Look how good it looks. That is a beautiful, complete answer to a detailed question. Now, it seems like a lot of steps, right? It's going to get easier. This is your very first detailed race strategy lesson, so it's going to take a little bit to get used to. Take your time, re-listen to the video. If you ever have any questions about this, please join our Zoom meeting in the mornings from 9:10 to 11:10. I can help you directly. I can even share my screen with you. I can go on to your assignment and do it right with you. You can even email me at bburton@kcsmn.org. Please do not struggle with this. Let's get it right the first time, and I'm here to help you. All right. Good luck, guys. Move on to your day 1 homework. It looks almost identical to this. All right. Good luck. Let me know if you need any help. I'm here to help you.